Hello, and welcome back to Book Banter. This is Katharine Schellman's third appearance on Book Banter, and she is the author of the beloved Lily Adler Historical Mystery Series and the Roaring Twenties-era Historical Mysteries, the Nightingale Series. Her novels are immersive, insightful, and a ton of fun to read. Let's welcome Katharine back to Book Banter.
Hello, Tanya.
Hello, it's so good to see you.
So good to see you too. It's such a pleasure to be back.
When I was going through our notes, I was like, wow, this is our third time. And there is a reason that we keep coming back to you, because I honestly, I don't read a lot of historical mysteries, but I always read yours.
Oh, thank you.
So that should tell everybody already. You should be Googling Katharine Schellman. Her name's right up on the screen. You can find her books wherever books are sold. And I would highly suggest both series at this point, because they're very, very good. And this is exciting times because the Nightingale Historical Mysteries, which are super fun and adventurous and are set in the 1920s Prohibition-era New York City at a speakeasy. I mean, how do you get better than that?
It's so much fun.
Such a good setting, right? The last Dance Before Dawn is book 4 and the final one in the series. So
yes. Last one just came out. It's a weird feeling.
I bet it is, because you're like, okay, do the characters actually leave your brain, or are they still like hanging out and dancing there?
I think it's been enough time since I finished like writing the draft at this point, because of course there's a big chunk of time from when you finish writing the book to when it actually gets out in the world.
Absolutely.
I think after I first finished writing it, I kept having ideas for like, oh, but should they do this? But I think they've kind of gone on their way a little bit now.
That's kind of helpful, isn't it? Because
Mm-hmm.
it opens space for new ideas and new stories. The Nightingale is such a fabulous setting, though. Like, I have the map of it in my head of,
It's so funny because the series is set in New York City in the 1920s, like you said, and people frequently ask me like, oh, is it based on like a real speakeasy? And it's sort of based on an amalgamation of a lot of speakeasies that were there at the time. But I do know where it would be in New York City, and people have often asked like, where's location? I would never say. Like, I would never tell.
That's good.
Because it's a secret.
It's a secret.
It's a speakeasy, guys.
Yeah. You don't have the passcode. You don't get in.
Yeah. But a lot of other locations do get mentioned by name, like down to cross streets. So I think if you were to like take all those locations and map them, you'd probably get a sense of where it is in the city, because it's kind of at the center of everything.
That's actually really clever. And that's a challenge. You should totally have a giveaway for that. Whoever can find the pinpoint on the map of where the Nightingale is,
you get the closest. Get
yeah, exactly. Which you've already read, by the way, because you needed to in order to. But wouldn't that'd be fun, actually. I don't reread books, and I might actually do that for that.
Like a scavenger hunt, right?
Exactly. That's actually brilliant. Scavenger hunt. Now you've got me thinking.
Should have done that for book 4.
Right? That would be awesome, actually. How did you land on the setting for the series? How did that be?
It was a little... Well, so my first series, the Lily Adler Mysteries, is set in Regency, England. So it's early 1800s, centers around London, but also other areas, out in the country around it. And I really wanted to write something in New York, or in the U.S., basically. And I knew I wanted to stay historical, so it had to be in an area where there were a lot of historical records available. And I wanted to go more modern than early 19th century, but not so modern that I started having to deal with technology that I didn't want to learn about, basically.
Completely understand that. Yes.
So I settled on 1920s because it just seemed like a really fun era to write about. And there were a number of a number of cities that I could have chosen that were very, very active cultural centers in the 1920s, but New York was kind of the easiest for me to access given where I live.
Sure.
A pretty short train ride away. So I ended up settling on there just because it made research much easier.
Plus, it's New York.
Plus, it's New York, so it's fun to visit.
It's one of my favorite cities.
Yeah, and just the combination of like I knew it wanted to be in the U.S. and I knew sort of the general era that I would be writing in just really gave me the more specific location.
That makes sense. Totally. Because like if you went into Chicago or something, you'd have to deal with a whole other element of what was going on with speakeasies and prohibition and stuff like that. So that makes
and
sense.
I think I went into it thinking, I think every historical fiction author does to a certain degree, like, oh, I'm picking a place I know about. Like I've read books about New York in the 1920s, so I know what I'm writing about. And you start doing your own research and you quickly discover you have no idea. You have no idea at all.
Well, because it's not just the we were talking about this earlier today, the like there's like a tip of an iceberg that you know, right? There's that little bit of one aspect of society, but you don't necessarily have the political landscape, or you don't necessarily have the weather system down, or it could be a multitude of things. But it's
what I found was that a lot of the information they had about New York in the 1920s was really restricted to what the upper classes were doing at the time. And most of my characters are working class or quite poor. And so that was just a completely different life and a different experience of the Jazz Age and of Prohibition, purely based on sort of your class and how much money you had and what you did and did not have access to socially and politically. And that it gave a lot of richness to the story. It was really fun to research. It was really fun to incorporate, but it just was interesting to discover like, oh, there's a whole other side of this world that I actually don't really know anything about. And
it's so true. I think that's a really interesting point, but I also love that about the books is the difference between the upper class and those that are struggling, because it makes actually both situations really shine in a different light. So you kind of take it for granted actually as a reader because you did all the hard work. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh yeah, like life is tough for Vivian. But you assume that that's the case for most people, but then you see the flip side of it. And you see the, mob bosses, for lack of a better word, and their lifestyle. But it doesn't mean their life's easy. It's just more comfortable.
It's more comfortable, but it has its own complications.
Yeah. I love that.
And it was very interesting to sort of figure out how to weave those together. And that's part of the reason it ended up being a series that's different types of crime fiction. Like they're not all whodunits. Like it's one that just came out, Last Dance Before Dawn, is someone described to me as like it's a little bit more of a historical thriller almost, because who done it at the beginning, but you're trying to figure out like how to get rid of him the whole time. So they're all sort of crime fiction adjacent. But what I found when I was researching was that so much of how the upper and the lower and the working classes interacted did have to do with all the criminal elements of prohibition. And because everyone, it really touched on people across classes in ways that meant they had to interact with each other, because so many people who were upper class were very much involved in bootlegging or running speakeasies, or even just being at speakeasies where they'd interact with people who were a very different social class than they were. So that really gave me the sort of the connection point for all these characters who were otherwise from very different worlds, just based on, the class or the family that they were born into. Are they immigrants? Are they working class? Were they born on Fifth Avenue? Like all those things, like they otherwise probably never would have come in contact with each other. But you have this criminal underworld that grew up as a result of Prohibition in the US, and it was weirdly unifying.
Isn't that bizarre? It is. It's really one of the, I think this was an earlier novel that you mentioned it, but it was how when people came into the Nightingale, it didn't matter where you were from or your income level or your social status or anything like that, because everybody was keeping everybody else's secret. So the only way that everybody stayed safe is everybody stayed quiet.
Yeah. And that was actually very common. And I have people ask all the time, like, how idealized is this? And to me, to a certain degree, all historical fiction is, it's fiction, right? We're not writing straightforward history. Otherwise, it'd be very different books.
Oh, yes.
But it's drawing on a lot of tradition that existed at the time. This sense of like, obviously not every speakeasy was a place where there was that kind of, cross-cultural or cross-class or cross-race mingling, but there were a lot of them where it did happen. Yeah. And that was really interesting to explore.
And I think that it's as well, when you have, like, say it's a speakeasy that those who are on the lower class of society are going to, you will always find the upper crust coming in. Because they're curious, because they want to live on the edge. Yeah,
right. Exactly. And that still happens today.
Absolutely.
You get people going to like the bad part of town, or like the seedy dive,
right?
That like, it's not fancy, but it's fun.
Yeah, it's outside the lines of what's expected. So it's human nature is to find the line and cross it. We seem to be good at it. So.
Yes, for sure.
So Last Dance Before Dawn is the final novel in the Nightingale series, which is great. Congratulations. And sad because it's over. How does it feel when you wrap up a series?
It was stressful. It was very stressful because I plan each book pretty thoroughly before I start writing, but I didn't plan the series before I started. So I had a very, based on where the characters started in book one, I had a sense of like, here's where they probably need to get to by book four. And over the course of, the 3 books that came beforehand, I sort of wrote myself into like, here are the things that you need to resolve by the end of book 4. And then I sat down to write. I was like, okay, here's what I got to figure out. And when it's the last book in a series, and that people feel very attached to the characters and to their relationships with each other, you want to do it in a way that feels very satisfying for readers, but also very authentic to the world you've created and the characters that you've been telling these stories with. And that's, it's a fun challenge, but it's a challenge. And I think for me, at least, I get to the middle of the book and I was, oh gosh, how is this going to come together?
The messy middle.
Yes.
I understand that. And I'm so relieved to hear you say it, actually, because I plan each book as well, but I have not planned out the whole series for the Hotel Hamilton. And I often wonder what I did to myself in that regard. But like I have like a general idea of time periods, but for each book, every book is a new experience. Okay, how are these characters going to grow? And you did that beautifully, by the way. They grow each time. And sorry, go ahead.
That's lovely to hear you say, because that's a real goal for me with each book I write. I want it to feel like, you're not, it's the same person in each book. And, from the beginning of the book to the end of the book, but I want them to have changed. And I don't want either just the main character to have changed. I want the secondary characters to also have a chance to grow and learn and change and have their own story arcs. But then, wrapping all that up in a final book is it's a tall order that you've made for yourself.
Yes. It's like on top of the deadline, there's all these extra pressures. That makes complete sense. I may just have to keep writing the Hotel Hamilton just so there isn't an end.
Like, I'll just keep adding more threads and fixing that thread and leaving another one dangling and just keep going.
Exactly. Eventually it'll sort itself out, I hope.
Well, the nice thing about that is when you're drawing on, family drama, It's always a lot to draw.
Never fails you.
Never fails.
So true. So true. Speaking of family drama, I actually really love the addition of Vivian and Flo's father showing up and how their paths crossed. That was one of those threads that was present from the earlier books, and you tied it up really well.
Oh, thank you.
It was really, really well done. Did you have a plan? Oh, and I guess you've just answered that. You didn't have a plan for the series.
I didn't. I knew. So when I started writing it, the first book, I didn't even know it was going to be a series. I thought it was a standalone.
Really?
And the publisher asked if I was interested in turning it into a series. And I said, yes, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. But then I had to figure out sort of what was coming next for these characters. And then by the time, and that was, this idea of like Vivian's parents and her family, like she and Florence are just like, it's not something they're so actively doing, but it's in the background of their lives. And there's something in each book that touches on it, where they get a little bit closer, like 2 steps forward and 1 step back, to sort of figuring out who they are and where they came from. And I knew in a 4th book that had to be wrapped up. But what I decided as I was planning the book was that I needed the answer to that question, because that search for them had always been tangential to the main plot of the first 3 books. And I needed the answer to be integral to the plot of this one. So figuring out like, what's the crossover here between, the Vivian's world at the Nightingale and whatever trouble is happening there, and her relationship with her sister, and, what she's learning about her family. Like, how do those interact with each other? And once I figured that out, the rest of the plot for the book just fell into place. Like, that was really the key, like where that crossover was. I was like, okay, now I have a story. Now I have a plot. Now I know where this is going and why there will be trouble getting there.
Yes. And I can see that. I can see it now. But I can also see the process of that being so key to how the rest of it falls, because
otherwise you just have two separate storylines happening, basically.
Yes, alongside each other.
Right. Which, can be like, there's some people who can do that very well. But I knew for this type of book, especially given like the kind of momentum that I wanted it to have, like, you needed to have this sense that everything was coming to sort of leading toward the same point at the end. So all those different plot threads had to be going in the same direction. And figuring out how to get them all pointing that way was a real challenge.
I bet.
Just a lot of sitting there and just staring at my notes and staring at a Word document and like writing 3 words and then crossing them out and like making bullet points for myself. So that part took a lot of work to figure out, just like how this is all going to come together. But once that was there, like once I knew where those crossover points were, then it made figuring out how the rest of the story fit together much simpler.
I could see that. I could also see it fixes timeline issues. It fixes everything, right? It just all it all comes to a head, and I thought it was brilliant. So well done. It's that ideating process, right? That like you get the nugget, and that you like hang on to that nugget with all your might, because it's gonna grow and shape and form into something else. But what's hard is that faith in between.
Well, and also just giving yourself the time to think through those things. I feel like so often, for me at least, I'll sit there and be like, if I'm not actively writing, if I'm not actively editing, if there's not a book being formed in front of me, what am I really doing the work? But just like sitting there and staring into space until things click, or like going for a walk, or to an exercise class, or a long drive, or
long drives,
like taking a shower when you have nothing to do but think, because you're just staring at the wall. Like,
totally,
that is such an integral part of the process, because your brain needs that time to just turn it all over and take all these different pieces and different ideas and try them out in different forms and see how they're going to fit together. But giving yourself that time, I find, can be really, it feels like it's unnecessary. Like, even though you know it's very necessary, even though you know like that's what makes everything else work. Like, just giving yourself that time and saying like, this is actually part of the work. This is actually very productive.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
It's really hard to give yourself permission.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. It's the daydreaming aspect. It's the letting it percolate as a movie in your own head.
Yes.
Kind of thing. I completely understand. And I also have a tendency to underestimate how important that is.
Yeah.
Because that's the best part, but carving out time.
It doesn't look like work while you're doing it. If someone came into my office, like where I, just sit and I'm staring at my computer and just going,
yeah,
like, that doesn't look like work, but it is. It's like none of the other stuff happens without it.
That's exactly right. I'm so glad you say that. I completely understand that. I have to apologize, friends. I don't know if you can hear in the background through my microphone. The landscapers really, really love the leaf blower.
Oh no.
And I think they're in my yard. So I apologize if you can hear that. They should move on soon. I don't know.
That's just inevitable. I think, my end, there's probably like various thumps and bumps happening because my son had half-day camp today. So he's entertaining himself right now.
Oh, well, he's doing a really good job.
He's doing a great job. He's doing a great job. There's a sign on the door that says, "Do not disturb."
That's really good. I need one on my house.
No leaf blowers.
No leaf blowers today. It's hard between the garbage trucks and the leaf blowers. It's hard to get an interview in.
Yeah. It's just living in the world.
It's right. Exactly. This is life. This is real life. So I have to talk about Vivian's relationships because she has lots of them. She has it's a very big cast, I have to say. And kudos to you because they're all very well-rounded. And
thank you. It was a horrible thing that I did to myself.
Very challenging because it's huge and they're all three-dimensional. They're all like, you hear the name, you could give me a name of your character and I would have a mental image of who they are because they stand alone. And they all, even if they're little arcs, they each have their own little story trajectory. So good job.
Well, thank you. It made that's another thing that made writing the final book quite a challenge. So it's like, I have so many characters whose stories I have to actively wrap up. It can't be like, and then they were at the Nightingale. Like, no, they need an ending.
They need to,
and what is their individual ending? And figuring that out was real interesting.
I imagine, because you've got me thinking about the future and how I'm going to do this. I'll be calling you. Let's stare at a computer screen together.
Yeah, sometimes you have to.
Right? Exactly. I have a friend who I will call, like, I just need your ideation brain for a little while. And people who are high ideators, I don't know if you are familiar with the Clifton Strengths, but there's this thing called ideation. And people who are in the top 5 of ideation can just shoot out ideas when you ask them a question. And the benefit is they're not attached to the end result. They don't care, or at least they tell me they don't care which one you choose or which one, like, they have no investment in it. They're just shooting out ideas, which is brilliant.
Yeah, it's helpful
when you're stuck. So just find an ideation. You'll be golden. So what was I going to say? I was going to say about her sister.
Okay.
She's got this really interesting relationship with her sister and her brother-in-law and her boss. So when you create these sort of side characters, but they all play a very integral role in her life, where do you get those complex relationships from? Because they are, like, each one, I can't explain it. You have to read the books, friends. But it's like they're all very different, but they're all very complex relationships. So there's so many layers to them.
Thank you. It's funny that the relationship between Vivian and her sister Florence is one that people mention a lot as just this very, very, very rich one that stands out a lot across the series, which is so funny to look back on, because the first draft of the first Nightingale book, Florence was barely a character. She was just sort of like the grump in the background who was always like unhappy with Vivian. And there wasn't much in terms of either Florence growing and changing or their relationship and how Vivian perceived her sister growing and changing. And that's another one of those things where once I figured that out, in a lot of ways, it became the heart of book one. Was, Vivian had all these other relationships going on. She had her friends of the Nightingale. She has her like love triangle between her boss and her occasional fling that shows up from time to time and causes trouble.
Like him.
He's a fun character to write. And she has all these other things going on. But once I figured out what was going to change between Vivian and her sister, and how it would change, like what needed to change in Vivian and what needed to change in Florence, and how they saw each other, that was another one of those things that just kind of gave me the rest of the plot and made the rest of the plot work. And so for books 2 and 3, Florence kind of, they'd had a big story together in the first one, and so in 2 and 3 she was there, but she wasn't as an integral to the main plot. But then, of course, with the family stuff coming back in book 4, she's suddenly playing a bigger role again, and that was fun to bring her back.
And she'd grown, she evolved really well and took on the role of motherhood and wife and everything like that. And did you find that it was something that just book by book you could see each character sort of growing?
I mean, I think a lot of it is, I think any story is, I come for the relationships. Like, I want to see the characters. I want to see how they interact with each other. Not even necessarily romantic relationships, but just, the family relationships, the friend dynamics. Like, I think our lives are completely defined by the people that we interact with and how those relationships change. So that's what I want to see in a story. And especially when you're writing crime fiction.
Yeah.
Like, no one is going out and casually committing a crime against them, casually murdering someone they don't care about. All of that is just, that's emotion, that's relationships. The heart of crime fiction is relationships, I think.
That's a good point.
If you don't have these really strong relationships between people, then everything else is going to fall flat. There's in book 3, there is a very different dynamic between Vivian and her boss than you get in other books that is very integral to the plot and really changes over the course of the book, in not necessarily good ways. And that part of the plot wouldn't have worked if they hadn't felt like real people with, a real relationship that could either succeed or fall apart. There had to be that sense of the potential for things to go in different directions, that sense of what they mean to each other and what impact they have on each other, in order for the plot to have any weight at all. So I think, for me at least, I read books for the characters. I enjoy good plots. I enjoy fun settings. I love a good twist. But even if a lot of those things fall flat or don't necessarily surprise me, or if I see the twist coming in a book, if I'm invested in the characters, I'm still along for the ride.
Yes.
And I think that's the same for me when I'm writing. If I'm not feeling invested in the people that I'm writing about, I'm not enjoying writing, and I'm not going to keep doing it.
That makes complete sense. Character-driven stories are, I think, because we can see ourselves in those situations, but keep it at arm's length, so that we have the opportunity to learn something about ourselves while enjoying fiction, and without having the hardships that happen to these people. And I think that character-driven fiction it can be fast-paced, it can be a slow burn, it can be all the different things, like you say, plot twists or whatever, but it's still, if you focus on that character's growth and that journey, you always have a connection point with readers.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. That's why I probably read every single thing you write. We're on the same page. So I know I've asked you this question before, but I think it's one that readers love to hear the answer to. So have you always written mysteries, and what drew you to them as a genre to focus on?
I started writing mysteries by accident. I thought I was writing more like straight historical fiction with a bit of a romance to it when I started writing my first book. And I thought I thought the plot was going to be, because I started with the characters. I'm always like,
Right.
like we said, character forward. So I had this character in mind. And this was the book that turned into The Body in the Garden, which is the first Lily Adler book.
Yes.
And so I had this character in mind, and I knew that she was a widow. I knew she was widowed unexpectedly and quite young, and that she was trying to figure out what came next for her. And I thought it was going to be like a second love story, that was what was going to happen next. But as I was writing, I realized unless I change this character dramatically, like who she is as a person, there is absolutely no way she's going to fall in love in this book. Like she is still all in on her marriage and her recently departed husband. And like, that's not what she needs in terms of growing and changing. Like that's not,
she just needs a hobby.
she needs a hobby. She needs to solve crimes.
Exactly.
That she needed something that made her feel like she mattered again. And like she had a purpose, and that there was something that she could do that no one else was doing. And I think that's that sense of like having to start over and find something that feels meaningful. Like obviously most of us aren't out there, stumbling over dead bodies and solving crimes, but that sense of like what I thought I was going to do with my life has not worked out. And I have to change, and I have to figure out who I am outside of this thing that used to define me so strongly. Like that is such a relatable thing.
Absolutely.
And that is such a human thing. And I loved this character for that. I didn't want to change her. I didn't want to like suddenly be like, oh, and she's ready to go, get frisky with a handsome stranger that she met at a ball. Like that wasn't the story that I wanted to be telling, because I wanted the character that I'd already been created.
Yeah.
So I ended up just continuing to write without any plan of what was going to happen.
Wow.
And eventually I was writing a scene and a dead body showed up in it. I was like, oh, thank God it's a mystery. I know what book this is now.
Oh my gosh.
So, and then once I was like, okay, now I can figure out a plot for this.
Right.
For this poor character who's just been like wandering around London talking at people. But it does feel a little bit inevitable, because looking back, I realized I read so many mysteries growing up. I watched tons of PBS Masterpiece Mystery, BBC Mysteries with my parents and my grandparents, and like all the Agatha Christie's and all the Miss Marple adaptations, like Geraldine McHugh, and like all of that stuff I just devoured when I was younger. And so I like starting to do a mystery, like I was like, oh, this feels like a genre that I would like to explore. Like, and again, like this idea that like we were talking about before, that like, mysteries are really like crime fiction is just about relationships.
Yeah.
Like it made it very easy to dive into. So yeah, I came at mysteries very sideways. And I think again, with the Nightingale mysteries, like those are the sort of books that I think get marketed as mysteries, and they are like, they have crime fiction elements to it. All of them have something that sort of needs to be solved or figured out, and it's it's dealing with criminals and prohibition, so like all those elements are there. But I think they could have just been as easily been marketed as like straight historical fiction, or family dramas, or like all kinds of things. And I think most books are like that. Like you take your 5 favorite genres and you mash them together, and but then you have to decide like which one, what tags you're putting on them when you pick them up.
Which lane are you going to go in?
Right. Yeah. You want people to be able to find them.
It's true. And yet I agree with you. That's the hardest thing about genres, is that there's so much crossover everywhere. And, fun fact, historical fiction was not a genre until recently.
Really? I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. So I must have been 4 or 5 years ago that I went into the library and said, where's your historical fiction section? That's not a section. It doesn't exist. You look by author. It's like, really? It's a genre online. So I'm like, I'm confused. So then I went to a bookstore and I asked the same question because I was like, maybe this librarian didn't know. Librarians always know, by the way, just so you know. They always know. She was right. I went to the bookstore and said, do you have a historical fiction section? Oh, no. Just look by the author's last name. And I was like, well, this is going to be uphill because it's so, and now you walk into a bookstore and there's a table that says
historical fiction. Yeah.
So that's how things shift and change in the book world.
But then even within historical fiction, there's so many subgenres. Like there's crime fiction within historicals. There's romance within historicals. There's women's fiction. There's commercial fiction. There's
fantasy.
Fantasy. There's spies.
I have a hard time with.
But there's so many because I think people just really enjoy, I think like you said before, there's that little bit of remove that a historical lens provides, but that it lets you take something that feels very familiar and put a little bit of a twist on it that suddenly you're seeing it in a very new light and you're relating to it in a very new way.
Exactly. And I think that is the key, is historical fiction has to give us some kind of resonance for what we're going through today, or what could happen today, or what we're familiar with. And familiar with is all relative to the reader and what they're bringing with them from their own life experience to the book.
Absolutely.
So if we could know that info, it'd be fantastic, but we don't. So we kind of write blind, hoping that we capture your attention and your heart in some way.
Yeah. And we're writing and thinking, okay, if this is resonating for me, hopefully it will resonate with someone else too.
Exactly. And that's where that phrase I think comes from, if there's no tears in the writer, there's no cheers in the reader.
I love that.
So I don't know about you, but I sob a lot when I write.
For me, it's dialogue. I'll be like reading back dialogue that I wrote between two characters. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
These people.
They certainly know how to cut with their words.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Totally. Yep.
Plus all the historical details are really fun.
It's so immersive. It's, like you have historical fiction and then say you set it against like an era like Prohibition or World War II or World War I. Those settings are built in, and you can always expand on them or zero in on something, but they're kind of already there.
Right.
So having the benchmark is kind of
they give you that framework.
They do. Yeah. Although I do think World War II is a really it's a horrible event. Don't get me wrong. It was a horrible event, but at the same time, it's a really great backdrop.
Yeah.
Because it's just, there's so many different perspectives.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that's always so fascinating about historical fiction to me is you're taking these eras that people might think they have a very clear concept of. And so often you're realizing you have only a very surface level idea of what was going on, or you knew what was going on for one group of people or in one part of the world. And suddenly you're getting an entirely new context, and it's just fascinating.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. I'm discovering that with the novels that are coming out regarding Vietnam. And I'm discovering that aspect of it, which is interesting. But that being said, there are still some really great World War II novels, even though I know a lot of readers are they're either really all in or they're done with it. But different perspectives, like you say. I have somebody actually that I met at the same conference that I met you at. Her debut is coming out this fall, and it is a World War II, but it's set somewhere else. So I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I need to read that.
Yeah. You get just like that little twist. You're like, oh, suddenly it feels completely new again. And it's amazing.
I'm easily hooked, apparently. Somebody said to me this morning on a different call that they're like, you always have these books that you just pull up and go, oh, that reminds me of this. And I'm like, yeah, I read a lot.
It's a good problem to have.
I think so. The Kindle helps, it
Mhm.
hides the list of the books on there. It's quite well. Yeah. So, okay, now what? Now what happens? Because the Nightingale series is complete.
Mhm.
So what are you working on? Are you allowed to tell us?
So having done 2 series now, I'm working on a couple of standalone ideas. One that I'm really interested in exploring right now, it's a little bit more of a Gothic, Southern Gothic fiction. And it's got a
Really?
little bit of I think most genres have a little bit of a mystery to them because there's always something that someone's trying to figure out.
So
But
it keeps
it's,
your brain the
yeah.
open loop.
Yeah. So this one, I'm hoping the plan right now is that it's a dual timeline story where you have a wealthy family in the 1920s who's basically secluded themselves at an old property, sort of weighed out, and a scandal that they do not want to talk about that happened back when they lived in New York. And there's secrets within the family that they're keeping from each other and from the outside world.
Oh, I
And
got chills.
so during the summer that they are at this property, something happens, and there's no specified historical record of what it was. And one of the daughters of the family comes out of this summer having become a very well-known poet, and she leaves that legacy behind. But there's still this something happened and no one knows exactly what it was. And then 100 years later, the family that's descended from the poet's sister is turning that old family property into a hotel. So they hire a young researcher to come and clear out the old family letters and papers and documents. And so as she's going through them, she starts to figure out what actually happened there 100 years ago.
Yes, I want that.
I mean, everyone loves a creepy house book, right?
Yes.
That's
I'm getting chills.
Love it.
I'm yes, that's definitely. Oh yes, I want that to read.
I hope you and many other people want it to read. We'll see. I have to write it first.
I was going to say, and when can we expect it?
After I write it.
Okay. Takes time.
Takes time.
That's a pretty good hook.
Thank you.
Thank
you. I like it.
It's very yeah. I could totally just little snippets. You see the preview of the movie.
Yes, please.
Right? That's usually my response to yes, of course. Whoever wants to make it into a movie. Please.
Who's your friend at Netflix?
Exactly. Yep. I'd be there as well. Okay, so let me just see. Oh, we talked about Lily Adler. See, we've gotten so far off script, which is actually pretty common for us. But we just chat is basically what happens. And we've talked about Lily Adler, and that has got 5 books in it.
Yes, the 5th Lily Adler came out last summer, and for now, that is the series. There's not a planned 6th book. There's a possibility for it, but I felt like I needed a little break after 5 books in 5 years in that series, along with the other series. I really loved where the characters ended up. It's always back to the characters, right? I loved where they ended up at the end of that book.
Yeah, there was a
and
lot
I
of
was
hope
I was feeling very, not necessarily final about that, but just they were ready for a break. So that one's a little bit the ideas for that are sort of percolating, and my publisher has said when I'm ready for a 6th book, they're ready for it, which is a lovely thing for a publisher to say.
Absolutely.
But I want to make sure that when I don't want to just think you can smush together a plot if you need to, any writer can do that, but I want it to really feel like this is what's happening for these characters next. So I'm still, like we said, all that ideation, the ideas for that are percolating, and I'm working on that on the back burner, but nice. I'm really I'm looking forward to doing something very different for a little bit, and then hopefully that'll sort of refill that creative well, and I can go back to see if there's more story for Lily and her friends.
Absolutely. And a change is as good as a rest, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
we never actually stop writing. We just write something different.
Pretty much. Yeah. Although after this last one that I've sent off, I'm telling myself, okay, which is, I'm just cursed myself too, that I'm taking a break of 4 to 6 weeks to catch up on the regular list of things to do and the life lists and stuff like that. But
that's good too. That's real good.
Balance isn't, always day to day.
Well, no, it's season to season, but also those rests and resets and just focusing on something else. Like, I don't know about you, I find I come back to writing with so many ideas and so much energy, and it's not like your brain's ever not working.
But it's just constant.
But you feel very, very refreshed and very ready to go. So I hope that's incredibly restorative for you.
I hope so too, because the Post-it notes are still getting written, so there's no worries there. There's still Post-it notes on story ideas that are like 3 or 4 books away, but it's sometimes you have to just take a step back too to regroup and enjoy summer.
Yes. Talk to some people.
See
your family. Vacuum your living room.
Yes. The thankless task of vacuuming the living room.
Yeah, that's the thing that always gets knocked off my list. Like, I'll make time for my family. Obviously, I've got kids. I've got a husband. I like them a lot. I enjoy seeing them. I make time for my friends. I'll make time for work and travel and sleep, because I don't function real well without sleep. And if I don't have time to clean the house, then I guess it's just not going to be clean for a few weeks.
And it'll get dirty again next week.
Exactly. As someone once told me, that adulthood is nothing but vacuuming the stairs over and over again until you die. And I was like, yeah.
There's something to be said about a 1-level house.
Yes.
I always questioned it because my parents always tended to go for like rancher style houses. And I'm like, yeah, I think there's something there.
Yeah.
There's logic there. No vacuuming the stairs.
Especially in the era of the Roomba, like just it can go and do the whole thing.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I don't have that
darn thing.
I don't have that option. We've got stairs.
I got stairs up and stairs down. So it's just not happening.
See, I just don't do it.
Actually, I have a child who does that. So yes, they get to that age and you're like, yeah, you want to live here?
Here's your list of chores.
Exactly. It's good for children to work.
Absolutely. Fully agree.
So, okay, around here we like to grow our TBR piles. Both the physical and the digital. So what is on your bedside right now?
Oh, it's actually not even on my bedside. It's right next to me. I'm going to show it to you because the cover is gorgeous. So it's called The Felon's Ball by Polly Stewart, who is not only a brilliant author, she's a great friend of mine. And this is her second book. And it
is a great cover.
It's another one of those, like, I don't know what category I'm putting this in, because it's a family drama that's looking at a moonshining family in Appalachia, Virginia, and sort of the multiple generations of secrets that have built up to some shady business happening at the sort of patriarchal brothers at their annual birthday party, which is called the Felon's Ball. And they host this giant,
that's hilarious.
This giant yearly birthday celebration. And when the story starts, they're at their yearly party and some bad things go down, and you get the children like digging into all this family history, and like just it's so juicy. It's so good. Like if you love generational troubles and like shady parents of shadier children, and like just unreliable narrator, like it's got
an unreliable narrator too.
Highly recommend. So that's what I'm pushing right now. Actually, it just came out yesterday. I was very lucky to get a little news about it early, so I'm recommending it to everyone right now.
Okay, so I'm going to guess that that's the answer to the next question, which if you could just pick one novel to tell a friend about.
That would be it. That would be it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I also just this one's right here too. I just finished rereading The Lost Book of Eleanor Dare by Kimberly Brock, who is an amazing author, historical fiction, and she's just like she has the most lyrical voice.
Oh, really?
Yes, just truly beautiful writing. And that one's a lot about like mothers and daughters and family secrets. And it's It's great. And you know that about going home after a long time away and what gets uncovered when you do that.
Do that.
Yeah,
there's like built-in historical
Mhm.
plot right there.
Oh yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
that's
Yeah.
cool. So you have a few books to add to your list, friends.
You're welcome.
And those two others. Oh, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining us. And friends, you can find all of Katharine's books at your favorite bookstore, as well as public libraries. And I know that because I've gotten some of yours from my public library.
We love a library.
I know, right? It's just, I consume all audiobooks from the library.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. And, you know, cooking is way more fun. So be sure to check out Katharine's books. And if you want to look at some shorter videos, because I know we chat a lot and most of these book banners are, 45 minutes to an hour long, I do produce shorter videos under the author notes playlist. And I give you behind the scenes about my books, my characters, and just my writing life in general.
Super fun. You should definitely check those out.
It is. They're a work in progress. I'm getting better. I'll tell you that. I'm getting better at it. I'm much more animated on these ones, and those ones are a little more scripted. So you don't get as much of my hand movements and stuff. Because
I also talk with my hands, so like I get that. I've been sitting here, like, keep them in your lap.
I know. I've been sitting on mine. Because my husband says I talk with my hands too much, and so I try not to. But,
I saw a clip of me talking on another podcast the other day, because the book just came out, so I've been doing a lot of like podcast and press and things, and it's just this the whole time, like that. So I've been trying to keep him in my lap this time.
That and nodding. I nod a lot. Yeah. I'm like, we're active listeners.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So there's nothing.
We're just excited.
We are. We're talking about books. How could we not be?
Right.
But do go check out Katharine's books. And until next time, friends, happy reading.